Yes, and thanks, Anne, and thanks to everybody who's joined us today. My name is Kevin Halpenny. I'm the current president of the Irish Landscape Institute, and I'm joined today by Anne Doherty and Bernard O'Connell, and we're going to use this session just as a briefing to you in the run into the professional practice exams later in the year. This is just an introductory session, so we wanted to get you together and just give you an outline of what's involved in the process. Um, but I suppose to begin with, I suppose I just to say that I'm current president, but I'm also a member of the Irish Landscape Institute, and I'm a member since its inception in the early 1990s. And I'd be a strong advocate for people who are suitably qualified, like yourselves, to join the institute. In my experience, is an excellent organization for sharing information, for networking in particular, uh, but also to demonstrate professional credentials. It's recognized by the International Federation of Landscape Architects uh, as the national organization for Ireland. And with your membership, you can go abroad. You can join other institutes on the basis of your pre-existing membership of the Irish Landscape Institute. So and likewise, we've set up Viva Voce arrangement in this country, and we've simplified and streamlined that process for people coming here who are pre-existing members of IFLA through other national organizations to join. So I'm delighted to see the uptake in the exam process this year, the professional exam process this year. And it's important that we don't make it unduly difficult. It has to be robust, but our emphasis is to try and communicate clearly with all people who want to participate in the process, and that's why we're having this briefing session. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hand over shortly to Bernadette O'Connell just to give you the bones of the process and how we're going to hopefully help you to facilitate to participate, and then we'll offer you an opportunity to ask us questions in relation to the process. So, Bernard, it shouldn't take uh, longer than about half an hour. So, just hand you over to Bernard just to give a very brief overview of what's involved.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Yeah, I'm Bernadette O'Connell. I work for JBA Consulting. I have about 30 years experience as a landscape architect in the UK and Ireland. So you are now the exam candidates, so you can start getting nervous now. um, so I just want to run you through this process just so that you're aware of what you should be doing. So hopefully you all got the email from Anne, the secretary, yesterday, the 19th of May, which states whether you are eligible to do the exam. If you didn't get that email, you need to get in touch with Anne immediately. So the email says that in order to be eligible for the exam, you must be a graduate of the Irish Landscape Institute. So if you're not a member, you must join immediately. You must have 2 years work experience to qualify to take the exam, and you have to have submitted the experience sheets which record your experience over the 2 years. You have to submit that to Anne by the 6th of August with your exam fee, which is €75. So there may be an opportunity to submit it soon after that if something happens or if you're on holiday, but the fee goes up. So get it in by the 6th of August is the message. And if you're not a member, you will be sent a link to join the ILI following the briefing. So just on the exam itself, so the exam is a written exam and it's going to take place in October, and we'll give you the exact date near the time. And the exam will be in UCD in person. So we are hoping that COVID restrictions will allow that by then, and it will not be an open book online. You'll be there in present doing the exam. So what we want to do is to organize some revision or information or chat sessions before that to help people on subjects or issues that they're struggling with. So we're suggesting organizing 3 revision sessions, possibly in September or early October. It's better to spread them out maybe after the summer and in the 6 weeks in the run up to the exam. But there is kind of little point us setting the agenda for this. It will be most beneficial to you if you can email in again through Anne um, what you're having problems with, or what you're lacking in your experience, or what you'd like to chat about. So I'm thinking that if you can do that at the same time as submitting your experience records around about August, that'll give us the remainder of August to come up with these sessions and structure them to have these sessions in September and start of October for you. So if we receive no requests for help, then we won't do these sessions. But if you want some help, this is your opportunity to email in, and we'll structure some sessions to give you this information. So I'm reading here now to see if you have any questions you want to ask myself or Kevin or Anne that will help in this process. So please just start to ask questions now.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Go ahead.
My problem at the moment is I don't I never got to do experience in a professional practice. 6 months was all I got because we hit the recession when I came out
Yeah.
of college back in 2007, 2008. So all the experience that I have, although I have 10 or 15 years at this stage, is all it's all through site projects and through my own sort of learning and reference. And I've worked with actually another member of, I do some work with another member of the Irish Landscape Institute. He has sort of been a mentor for the last year or two. But so I suppose it's like understanding exactly what I need to know, because obviously the landscape architectural it's a very vast array of skills. So trying to hone it down to obviously what might be asked in an exam for me is kind of where I'm looking for pointers of what I need to know, whether so I can figure out whether I know them already or whether it's something I need to go and revise.
Sorry, can you just
yeah.
give us your first name?
Caroline.
Caroline. Sorry. Thanks, Caroline. And you graduated more than 2 years ago.
I graduated in 2008.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2007.
2007. So in between then and now, you would have had quite a significant amount of experience.
I do.
Yeah. Well, then there's no issue there. We'll be able to, so we'll give you resources that you can review in advance of any further briefing sessions, and you know, I wouldn't anticipate a difficulty. If you've been working in the industry over that sort of period, I would imagine that you won't find it unduly difficult to participate in the process.
Okay. It's a long time since I've studied.
Well, it's you're studying against the background of references to things you're in, you know, that you would
I'm doing on a
be
daily basis.
involved and you'd be involved in, and that makes I know that my own experience, that makes it easier to understand the rationale for what you are studying. You know,
Yeah.
it's the nature, and the exam is quite practical in terms of, you know, it's about things like planning applications and the type of drawings you need for different situations. And so,
Right.
you know, it's quite practical in its emphasis. I don't know, Bernadette, do you want to mention anything?
Caroline, have you had a look at the experience record book?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, well, you need to request that and have a look,
Okay.
and see if you feel there are areas that you know, you can ask us to help you now. You've got this time.
Okay.
So that's the purpose of the informal sessions that
Yeah.
we might do in September. So if you can request those from Anne,
I will.
then I could, if you want to see one, I've got one on the screen here that I could show you.
Yeah, sure.
Just
If
as
that's
a
okay with everybody else.
The other
as a
thing is the
little,
past exams, I believe, Anne, are still up on
They're on the website,
our
yes.
Yeah, I
website.
downloaded those. I just haven't had a
Yeah.
chance to.
But they're a good, they will give you a very good sense of
Right.
what's involved.
yeah. So can you just see that sheet there,
I can indeed,
Caroline?
yes.
Yeah. So there's six, I think six kind of procedures or activities that a landscape architect would go through, and yeah, you want to just see if there's anything on there that you don't understand. I would imagine with your experience, you would understand all of those.
Yeah.
Caroline, it's just, getting your head around the language and the activities that you as a landscape architect may do in those. So yeah, just see if
This
you can get hold of that.
yeah, the certificates.
Yeah.
This I've been started to be asked for like completion certificates of completion, things like that. That
Yeah.
was something new to me.
Yeah.
Things like that. But apart from that, I think most everything else on that list.
It's really about the understanding you have of
Yeah.
those things, as you know, obviously we want to see that there's a reasonable range of involvement in different activities, but when
Yeah,
it comes then to the exam, it's about having an understanding of the processes and what's involved, and maybe any, you know, even that there is a, you know, if there's a legislative background or requirement in relation to
yeah,
various processes, that you'd have an understanding of that. And just in terms of a mentoring process, well, Roshan is asking about that. Well, effectively, this is it. We're not doing we don't have the resources to do one-to-one mentoring, and we don't
sure,
think
yeah,
it's necessary per se. But as Bernadette outlined, uh, we will be responsive in as far as possible to queries or concerns that people raise between now and September in the context of submitting their worksheets. I think that's a very pragmatic and practical way to approach this,
yeah.
because
Okay,
we can't predict what people might or might not know. We probably do some sample uh, question and answer questions and how they'll be answered typically in the context of the sessions that we organize. But it's much easier for us, as having reviewed the past papers and reviewed the material that you need to in preparation, that you then say, well, I don't know what you know, why what the logic behind this is, or what's meant by this, perhaps, so that we can, and give us maybe a heads up on that as far as possible before the briefing sessions.
okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Caroline, just to add that um, people of 2 years experience may not have done certification, but they just need to understand the type of certificates and what they may be used for. So there is a level of reason that's applied to this. So again, don't really worry about that,
Okay, thank you.
So,
Bernie, sorry, we've just had one just join us there. Can you just quickly recap on the key dates again? Just
Yep. So the key dates, as I said, that you have to get your experience forms to us by the 6th of August. with your €75 fee. And this was outlined in an email from Anne in the Irish Landscape Institute yesterday. It was the 19th of May. So check your inbox that you got that. So it's talking about the experience sheets. You have to have those sent in by the 6th of August with your fee. You have to be a student member of the Irish Landscape Institute at that point. And if not, you have to join. You have to have 2 years work experience in order to be eligible. And that's 2 years of filling in those forms. And the written exam will take place in October, probably the start of October in UCD. This is not an online open book exam. And we hope that COVID restrictions will allow you to be there in person, and that's what we're planning for at the moment. So those are your key dates: 6th of August for your experience sheets showing your 2 years experience, €75 exam fee, be a member of the Irish Landscape Institute, and the exam will be middle of October, and we will update you once you've sent in your forms. And we're hoping to have some informal sessions in September, giving feedback on issues that you have sent to us that you want to go over. We're not going to make these up for you unless you come to us with the subject matter.
Yeah, very thanks, Bernard, and a very good question there from Veronica. In reference to what I mentioned earlier about the membership of IFLA, and that as a full member of the ILI corporate member, you then are effectively a member of IFLA. So it does confer that benefit for you in terms of anything sponsored by IFLA becomes available to you as a member. So that's a really useful issue to raise, and happy to clarify that. Is the place to get the workbooks the ILI website?
I will be sending them out, Kevin,
Yeah.
following this. So I'll be sending out the worksheets, I'll be sending out the application form, and also the reading lists.
Thanks to Mark for raising that. That's a good issue to clarify. Thanks, Mark.
Kevin, can I ask a question on the audio here? Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, Terence. Yeah, please do.
I'm based up north in Belfast, and I'm just thinking the syllabus. I know the ILI syllabus is very closely aligned to the UK one that I'm used to up here. But in terms of the planning system, if there's any questions that come up on the exam on the planning system, like my experience would be more with the planning system in the north, not so much down south. Could I relate my experience in the north to the south, or do I need to specifically know the planning system down there?
Well, we can only, I suppose, we can only really accept answers relative to the Irish planning system. But having said that, the level of detail that we get into in terms of the planning related questions, it's not overly onerous. We have referenced reading material in the list provided, but you can get into it as deeply as you like. But I think where I direct you there, Terence, is again, I mentioned the past papers to give you a very good sense of the type of detail that's appropriate, and we're not looking for very what would you say, onerous kind of levels of detail in relation to that. But I suppose we have to be consistent in terms of taking the answers. Number one, that's what the adjudicators of the people assessing the answers would be most familiar with themselves and best positioned to report. And number two, it has to be a level of consistency in terms of the professional practice exam. But I would suggest that between now and the exam date, there's very adequate time to review, and in the context of the three potential briefing sessions that were provided for in September, that if you in reviewing that material you have concerns or about your understanding of it, we'll certainly be able to address those.
Okay, thank you.
But thanks for a good question, Terence. Anybody else like to ask? Oh yeah, does the work experience need to be for our working in Ireland only? That's a very good question. I don't believe so. No, I don't. No, it wouldn't be. It's more that you have the level 8, the appropriate level 8 degree for 2 years, and in that time have been involved in or participated in the types of experience that that we're looking for into to the worksheet. Bernard, have you any other comments on that? Or
This is for Gabrielle.
yeah, sorry,
yeah,
Gabrielle. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
Gabrielle, your issue will be very similar to that of Terence, who was just on there.
Yeah.
In that, if you looked at the work experience record book, it would be section 2 that you would want to, which is planning and legislation, which is specific to the Irish system, that you would want to try and look up, and that you might bring to our attention for the sessions in September. Just to understand the planning process and your input as a landscape architect to the various stages of the planning process, and what your client might ask you that you would do at each stage. So you have your opportunity now to read through that and to come back to us with further questions.
A very practical approach to that might be to put yourself in a position where you've been engaged, say, by a developer in advance of pre-planning to provide the landscape consultancy element of the project. So if you put yourself in that, what resources you need to provide, what understanding you need to bring to the pre-planning meetings, what you'd have to have prepared in the context of a planning application, and then what you'd have to be able to present, say, at meetings with a planning authority, before you get to planning consent, and then then you move into obviously the other phases in terms of implementation and project management. So that's sort of, you could draw it out in terms of a process, and for your sake, in terms of the types of planning application, in terms of scale, like strategic housing development, what they are, what a typical residential development would require, what types of resources and drawings would be needed to be provided, what's involved in an appropriate assessment, environmental impact assessment, screening types of planning processes, and environmental considerations, what they are, sustainable urban drainage, all this sort of type of thing, what's involved with that. So I don't know, Bernard, you're far better placed than me in some respects. I'm kind of looking at what Bernadette brings to the planning authority for
Yeah,
review.
it's the bulk of a landscape architect's work is really section 2 of that work experience, planning and legislation. You would so you need to know what you would have to do to input to various planning drawings at various stages. What professions would you need to liaise with to complete your landscape package, and what do you need to understand for their work and for them to understand your work. So it's a kind of coordination with other professionals as well, because that's what a client's going to ask you. What can you bring to ensure I get planning development for my my development? So yes, to really understand that, and that could be a very good session in September. But again, you need to request that, because myself and Kevin, we work on both sides of the the practice, Kevin's
The divide.
the divide, beg your pardon. Yeah, I'm the kind of person who gives Kevin endless hassle with my planning applications for developers, and he shows mercy when he feels like it. So you have to understand from both our perspectives what is needed. So it's a very good question. Yeah.
Yeah, what you expect, yeah, what bar you need to achieve in terms of achieving, as Bernard mentioned, achieving planning consent.
Yeah.
And then that informs you, you know, if there's a deficiency in the application. So if you literally bullet pointed out all the resources landscape wise that would need to be provided for in a relevant application, and even at what the sort of what they call a section 247, the pre-planning discussion might look at the key you know, key issues for consideration.
Okay, a couple of questions there, Kevin, in the chat.
Oh, sorry, yeah. A question. Sorry.
From Maria.
So from Maria, the entire Berna agrees planning law book is in recommended read. Yeah, that's it's very, yeah, and that's come up a few times, and it's not, we're not asking you, certainly not asking you to have that fully reviewed. That's there more with a view to people understanding that such a thing exists, and that if they need to go into the very heart of the planning process, that you would go to a library or a reference session and we'll provide a little bit of background more on that in the future briefings, but certainly no, we won't be requiring you either to buy it or to review it in any detail. It's more to understand that it exists, and if there was a query about a very detailed planning issue, that you might have recourse to that. And we probably need to relook at the reference to that in our recommended list, because that has caused a little bit of confusion in the past. But it's more to understand, even, you know, to maybe take a look at it, and I think the last time we were able to do when we were able to do face-to-face briefings, I think I brought along a copy just to show people what's involved. As you could, it's like a giant brick, a 9-inch block. So we're not asking you to have that fully absorbed. I wouldn't like to be questioning too much detail on it. But it's just to understand what it's about, and you know, it's good for you to, you know, to just see all the different sections involved, and it's updated, so it's like a thing that, you know, you can add more additional legislation in as it becomes relevant. Recording projects in the workbook. Do we need to record every project we have worked on in the past 2 years? Some of us have 5+ years experience and have worked on hundreds of projects. Do we pick out the main? Yeah, that's a very good question from Joseph. Any thoughts on that, Bernadette? I mean, I think the main highlights would be where
Yeah, well, there are 6 different procedures and activities on that record book. For your best chance at passing the exam, you want to have done something on each, or at least studied something on each, because if you have only done site surveys for 5 years and worked on site, then you're not going to know much about the planning system. So you would be best, if you haven't worked in an office or you know, worked with someone on planning applications, that's what you really need to study up on. So yeah, and you know, sometimes you can't get work in all areas, but that's what you need to do your research on, because ultimately that's what any client is going to ask you on. And if you are a full member, you need to understand all the activities that a landscape architect is required to do to appear competent for your client.
Thanks, Bernadette. And Terence, how many questions are on the paper, and how long is the whole exam? There's two papers. One is more theoretical and one is more practical. That's the format we've had to date, and if that changes, we'll let you know in advance. But I think, is it a 2.5, 3 hour exam? I can't remember offhand. think it may be 3 hours, but we'll get you clarity on that, Terence.
Terence, you need to download a few past papers and get
Yeah,
ready.
to have that. Yeah, the question, you see
Yeah.
the layout fairly consistently on the past papers. I think if they're not up, if we're not up to date on them, we'll get it up to date because we still have the papers from the last exam. Web Other books, web resources we can look at to help us get started, getting a better understanding of the process. Yeah, what would be, I suppose, you can do a lot of reading around the planning applications, I'd say. Even if you look at some examples of planning applications online, I think that'd be a good option to do. There's lots and lots of that kind of material. So that might be a way of approaching it. You see, the reading list does include more general documentation than the great big planning tome that was mentioned earlier on, the planning law book. But I'll have a look. We'll, as I say, if we know, if you like to sort of let us know what areas you want the briefing sessions to focus on. Obviously, we'll do some focus on past exam questions, but if there's specific areas that you want us to run through in terms of the planning process in particular, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
We've just had a couple of late comers there, Kevin, but what I'll do is I send the recording to them.
Yeah.
Okay, rather than just having to recap for everyone.
I think that's
and I'll be sending out an update to everyone as well.
Yeah, and if that captures the main dates in terms of application and joining as well, just to re-emphasize what Bernadette mentioned earlier, it is important that you are to begin with a student or a graduate member of the institute to apply. And also then you'll get updates on our very successful webinar program that's going on at the moment. So I'd strongly advocate participation in that.
Okay.
Because we might ask some of the questions about the content from that.
There's a couple more questions there, Kevin, as well. Trisha's put one in.
Is there an ILI code of practice? Well, we've a code of conduct, all right. We can send you that, but we certainly send you that. We can forward that to all the participants. I graduated. Tricia says I graduated as a landscape architect in 2004 and worked for 6 years as a landscape architect. I then broke away from landscape architecture. I worked in community development. Recently, a good bit of my work experience is from 10 years ago. Well, I don't think that's no particular problem.
There's no date. There's no date requirement on that or time limit on it.
There's no cutoff. I mean, as I say, it's just to re-engage with the planning process and the various up-to-date protocols and that would be relevant and that may be subject to the exam. Okay. So is that a good way to begin the process? As I think the last time we qualified 18 people to our last process, so we're hoping to be at least as successful this time. And I really appreciate you coming along today and participating in the session, and I hope you found it useful. And you know where we live, and we'll be corresponding with you on foot of this presentation, and also then to hopefully you will get to join us, and that you will get your worksheets in due course, and we'll do the sessions as required through September. So thanks everybody for your participation today, and thanks to Anne and Bernadette for your assistance with the presentation today. So
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
everybody.
very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Look forward to
Thanks,
seeing
thanks.
you again soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Bye.